seems nowadays that the word JPEG is a dirty word. There's this weird degrading look that photographers give each other if anyone mentions using JPEG. And for this reason, this is why I have the fear of God every single time I go into image quality and scroll past JPEG fine. But just how bad are JPEGs? Well, today I went out, did a little shoot just to find out.
Know the truth, because the truth will set you free. Know the truth, because the truth will set you free.
Okay, it's a different time period. I'm wearing something else. Get over it. Let's go on with the video. Alright, so what you've just seen in that video sequence are JPEG images straight out of the camera, untouched whatsoever. Now, there's a few disclaimers I need to make. First of all, I've realized as I was looking through the images, I accidentally had my grain setting set on my Fujifilm camera. So you will notice inside the JPEG images, there will be grain on the images. Sorry, that's my mistake. I don't think it impacts the image too much. You'll see that further on. And the next disclaimer I'd like to say is what we're talking about today is not exactly comparing or saying that JPEG is better than RAW or RAW is better than JPEG. We're not really doing that. We're just trying to discuss how bad actually are JPEGs. You'll know that already because a lot of people swear by never using JPEGs because apparently JPEGs are super trash. Now, if you're just starting out in photography, you're not too sure what the difference is between RAW and JPEG. RAW just retains a lot more information as a file source. You can push and pull the colors a lot further. You can manipulate the colors a lot further. You have full control over white balance, over your lens correction, everything. Basically, you can go out there and shoot blind, and once you get back to the computer using RAW, you can make it look as good as the JPEG file. Whereas the JPEG file, everything is already burnt in camera. So if you make a mistake, it's burnt into the image and you can't really change it so much afterwards. You can adjust it, especially with these modern cameras, but you don't have so much flexibility. Let's just see how bad these JPEG files actually are. Let's head over to the PC right now. So I'm just gonna set up a screen record for you guys so you guys can see here in full detail. Let's just hit record on this. Okay, we're recording. Okay, so hopefully now you guys should get a full detailed picture of what's going on the screen here. So we've got a few images which I took today, and we're just gonna have a look at how the RAW files and how the JPEG files look straight out of camera and how we can edit them, and you just see how far we can push that JPEG file before it completely disintegrates. How people say it disintegrates instantly and you can't use the files. We'll see. So this is a JPEG file straight out of my X-H1. That's a Fujifilm camera, and this is the RAW file. You'll notice that the image will look different. It looks a lot more darker here on the RAW file, and that's simply because this is the exact image how it was seen by the sensor straight away, whereas a JPEG file takes that image directly from the sensor and then does whatever manipulations that you've put into your camera settings, whatever you set in there. For instance, like I said earlier, I accidentally left my grain setting set on my JPEG file, so it would add grain. I've set mine to lift a bit of the shadows. and the color format I think was set to standard, which is Provia, so the colors will be different. There'll be a bit lifted, more shadows, and there'll be more grain with inside the JPEG files, and that's what we've seen there. The shadows are lifted, the color's slightly different, and there's some grain. Now if you want to see the grain up close and personal, hopefully it doesn't affect the image comparison too much, but as you can see, here's the grain here, and if we flick over to the raw file, there's no grain there. So side by side, you can see that the JPEG file is sharper because, like I just said, the camera is adding sharpening, so we can catch back up. I think have I already? Sorry, I apologize. I've already added some pre-sharpening on there. So this is a sharpened raw file, and this is the JPEG file. Well, say no more there. Let's zoom back out. Now the big problem is people say that you just can't adjust JPEG files like you can with RAW files. Now let me explain why they say that. Now if you notice over here, I click on the RAW file and we go over to the quick settings here. Now on white balance, you can see I have a mode here, and I can go on whatever the camera shot it on. I can go on daytime, tungsten, cool white fluorescent, blah blah blah. I can change the whole color setup of the RAW file. Whereas if I click on the JPEG file here, you'll notice I only get what the camera was shot on. So you are very limited of what you can do with a JPEG file. For instance, if I click on the lens also, there's no lens correction that can be done with the JPEG file. Fortunately, my camera does the correction inside of the camera. That's why you can see it change a little bit of perspective there. But then on the RAW file here, you can see I can do a full correction. So those are the kind of obvious differences. Now the next difference is embedded inside of the file itself. Now a RAW file retains a lot more information, so we should be able to push the image a lot further. So first, let's start with the JPEG file. Now this JPEG file to me looks great, and I will post this on my social media, no problem. And this is where we're going to start to nitpick, and this is where everyone has the issues, and this is why you'd shoot RAW to start with. Now, like I said before, this is the window. We can see there the shadow area and the highlight area. If we click on the RAW file, when it likes to load, you'll just see how much more information is retained between these two. Even that nice dollop of bird poo right there is clear as day, whereas on here it's pretty much blown out, and this is the best recovery I could do with the highlights on the JPEG file in comparison to how much more you get back with the RAW file. But to be honest, it's only in high contrast areas where the JPEG vs RAW seems to be a problem, because if you look at the overall image here on the RAW and here on the JPEG, I mean, they're just so similar. Yes, the whites blow out a little bit more, but when you zoom in, you're still retaining so much information. It takes a while to load here, but there's just so much information on the RAW files. I mean, on the JPEG files there. So yeah, I'm not too convinced that JPEGs are that bad. We've got another example here, the same kind of thing. This is the RAW file. This is the JPEG file. I mean, they look absolutely identical. It's virtually impossible to tell the difference. Let's zoom into the windows here. Okay, so that's the RAW file, and this is the JPEG file. RAW file, JPEG file. Now, one thing I really do like about the Fujifilm X-H1 is that grain, the ability to add grain and stuff like that with inside your JPEG makes things look a lot more film-like. To me, that looks like it was a scan of a film image, whereas this looks very digital. So I don't know, there's just something about the softness over here, especially as well. If you look in the trees, the softness of the JPEG kind of gives it a more smoother film-like look, whereas the RAW retains a lot more sharper information, which makes it a lot more digital. But yeah, each to our own on what we choose and what we like. But this is just pixel peeping. When you zoom out, this is the image you actually get. Between the two, there's not much. It's very minor, but I'm guessing when you print this out onto a bigger thing, you'll start to see the difference. So I guess that's all the information that we need. The big question is, are JPEGs really that bad? And in my conclusion, I'm gonna say I don't think they're bad at all. But I think as an overall thing, if you're a beginner and you've just started doing photography, shoot JPEG, man. Don't worry about it. Get into RAW eventually. I would probably say you should always shoot RAW and JPEG when you're starting out, so that you can start to edit on the RAW files, and if you don't feel so confident, just jump over to the JPEG, do a little bit of a tweak and post that. I can't believe I've been boycotting JPEG files for so long. I feel like I've been lied to on the internet. Like, they're not as bad as what people make out. But I'd like to know what you guys think. Leave it in the comments below. Have you even used JPEG files, or are you against JPEG files? Have people told you never to use JPEG files, or do you only use JPEG files? Let me know. Leave it in the comments below. And if you're one of these watchers, because I've been looking at my algorithms recently, and there's a lot of you guys that watch this channel and don't bother subscribing. What's the point? Just, if you're gonna watch it, subscribe. You might as well. You're here, just hit the subscribe button. You don't have to hit the like button. If you want to, you can hit the like button. But alright, that's it for this video, and I'll catch you guys in whichever video comes next. Peace.